Welcome back to my channel. My name is Stacey Flowers, and in this video I am going to be decluttering my office. So if you are interested in that, please keep watching. So we have fast forwarded a month. It took me a month to KonMari Method my office, and that is because I got rid of some very sentimental important things. Those of you guys who are not familiar with KonMari Method, she is the author of The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. It is a phenomenal book that I highly recommend. I feel like even though in her book she talks about how you only ever have to tidy one time, I think her tidying method is so intense that it's kind of hard to do it all at once. Hence the reason it took me a month to completely tidy my office. The reason why I wanted to do it is because I found that I wasn't actually using my office, and one of the reasons why I chose this particular apartment over the other apartments that had more like updated amenities or just different features was because it did come with an office nook. And so when I found myself maybe for like a month not really using my office nook, I was like, something's going on here. And then the other thing too is that I was noticing that I wasn't as productive in my work output. So I was just like, okay, it must mean I'm just too overwhelmed in my office space. It's time for a change. So let me KonMari Method this office. So I got into it. I maybe was consistent for the 2 days. Like first things first was just like assessing all of the stuff that I had going on in my office and all of the piles of office stuff that I had everywhere. And then it was sort of like taking everything out, which is something that she recommends, is that you literally pull everything out from where it's stored, because the way things are stored, it can be very deceiving. Like I had no idea how much stuff like I had in my office that was just completely useless. And I am a paper girl. Like I love pen and paper. I love keeping all that documentation. And so it's very, very hard to actually like go through each piece of paper piece by piece. And what she recommends is that you have, you know, those little magazine filers like that. If you have to keep paper, like you can keep that, but her paper philosophy is discard everything. So I went into this tidying marathon with the intent to discard everything, and it was only towards the end did I give myself the exception to keep like a magazine file size of paper. And I don't have a magazine holder yet, so that stack of paper looks a mess, but it was hard to just like get things organized and to say goodbye to some things. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys what that process looked like. Yeah, my mind is totally blown. I'm going to show you guys what that process looked like because it was very, very intense. But I will say that I do think that it was necessary. Like I noticed progressively as I was clearing out my closet that I felt lighter, I felt better, I was more clear, I was able to be a lot more productive. And because everything had a home now, like it just made it easier for me to access things and create a routine out of the resources that I actually had in my office. So if you're looking now, you can see that I have these piles of stuff. Like my home looks a mess. It's really not as messy as it looks, but it looks a mess. But I just want to show you guys like the wasted space in my cupboard and the wasted space on my desktop. Like I just had an enormous amount of things for no reason. Even looking back on it, it gives me just a little bit of anxiety to even think that like that's how messy it was. So the first thing that I did was I just pulled every single thing out of my cabinet so that I can begin to see like, okay, what really do you need to keep and what really do you need to get rid of? And oh, look at my son, he's so handsome. That's one of my favorite pictures of us. And then I obviously moved my computer back into the office space because that was the point. The point of me not getting a laptop was so that I wouldn't do the very thing that I ended up doing at the beginning of the year. Here I'm just going to separate my pens because there are just some pens that I don't use, and there's no reason to keep pens around that I'm not actually using. This is my microphone that I use to record my podcast, but you know, my desktop is now officially clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go through every piece of paper in every single box that I have, which wound up being a lot. Here are my stationaries. Like I have this gorgeous stationery that I don't use. Then I'm going to review her book where she tells me that the basic rule of paper, discard everything. Can't even believe she told me this. So here, this was a really hard thing for me to do. These are my budget forms from the first time that I went on the Dave Ramsey journey. And I literally tossed every single one of them, which was a very hard thing to do. What I realize now is that because of some of the trauma that I just had as a child, I didn't have a really good way of holding on to memories, and so I used paper to store my memories. But through me going to therapy, I've now been able to sort of restore my memories and recall them when I need them, and so I don't actually need the paper to remind me that I experienced something. So I don't need the, you know, paperwork that shows me the year that I've tried Dave Ramsey and failed. Like, why would I be keeping that stack of papers around? In hindsight, it doesn't make very much sense, but at the time I was like, no, I want the documentation so I know when I began. But it's just like, you're maintaining documentation of a failure, and you just need to call it what it is. So looking at my cupboard now, it's like seeing that things are super clear. Then it turned into the second day. My desktop is clear. My cupboards are still pretty clear. But if you turn things around, you will see that this is a little bit deceiving, because over here on the floor and everything is where I still have to do some sorting. I did make a pile to donate some journals and binders that I'm not using and some folders that I'm not using, but I still have so much stuff to go through. And again, it's very hard. Like, I think I was wiped out after I got rid of like my budgeting forms. I was very wiped out, so it was a little bit hard for me to just keep working through things. And so now it's just like going through these odds and ends, like photos, and just, I mean, there's just so many pieces of paper in my life, like all over the place. And I mean, I'm grateful that I have this office space, and I just want to maximize it. And getting rid of paper that I don't need it's just been super, super freeing, especially paper as it relates to past failure, or paper as it relates to relationships. Like, I had a lot of letters in there from past relationships that it's just not necessary. And so yeah, so that's what everything looks like now. That was my entire process. I will say again, the most emotional thing to get rid of was the documentation, where I was documenting my financial journey the first time, and even the paperwork of me documenting my journey this time. But I had to realize, I'm like, Stacey, you have an archive of video. Why are you keeping these binders and binders of paper? And I think the clearing was so cathartic for me that I contemplated getting rid of my journals. I'm not there yet. They're fairly organized, but I may get rid of my journals because I have my memories now. A lot of that trauma is, while it's healing, and so because it's healing, I just have my memories, and I don't know if they need to be written down anymore. So let me show you guys my cupboard so you guys can kind of see the final result. So if you are looking here, this is my desktop. I'm just editing a video there. This is that stack of papers that I made mention that I get to keep. I know it looks unorganized, but that's literally because I have like up, down, but I get to keep this, and I'll get a magazine holder so that looks more organized. Have my passport and my debit card there. This, you know, you guys remember I told you that I was keeping cash, so I have been keeping this dollar just so I could visually stop resisting money. And so then I went to my emergency fund and I pulled out $200 just so that like I can just, again, stop resisting money in cash form. So this is just $200 that sits on my desk. This is a plaque that I got from a conference. These are the pens that I actually use and the markers that I use edited down. This is one of my favorite pictures of my son and my niece, and this is a picture of me and my son. This is a business card to the Soho House. This is a card that I received that inspires me to think about one day going to Paris. This is one of my favorite black and white profile pictures of my son. And then I just have my computer on my desk. And then this is a stack of paper because I write everything down. And then this is a notebook that I use with my coach. So then when we come up to my cupboards, I'm pretty proud of how my cupboards look. I feel like they came together much more nicely than I even thought. Like, given how much paper that I did have, I was able to reduce it down to just these few binders, and I'm probably actually going to be able to go down to 2 large binders and then donate these, 1 binder for my coaching clients and then 1 binder for writing down business ideas. Then I always keep a stack of printer paper because I just like to write on unlined paper. This is what I was using for bullet journaling, and then I have a little bit of lined paper in here just in case I need it. All of these little coil things are from my coach. Like every single month she sends me a workbook that I work through. Then I have my ruler so I can easily work in my bullet journal. I have some envelopes. I have my 3-hole punch. This is my microphone for my podcast, which I'm glad I finally were able to put it in here because on my desk it was just taking up too much space. These are my journals that I've had over the years. These are the ones that I'm thinking about clearing and getting rid of. Doing the marathon helped me to just realize, like, I mean, it's beautiful to have that, but like it's not as like precious to me as it used to be. Then here's the calculator. When I go to the second shelf, what I like about this shelf is this is kind of my equipment shelf. I do have my photo albums, a couple of photo albums here, but when I get my coffee table, these will get transferred to my coffee table. And these are a couple of journals that just didn't match my black journals, but otherwise I put my equipment here. So when I'm not using my tripod, this is sort of a tripod that I can clip so that I can do my Stacey Flowers morning show. And then I also have a handheld tripod. I can put all of that on this shelf. And then this here is like my miscellaneous stuff. And even though it doesn't look organized, it actually is organized. And I just want to find like 3 great baskets to put it in because they're not all the same size of things. They're like CDs and tchotchkes from my Delta days, but I don't have desktop or tabletop space to display things, so they just need to be stored for right now. But that is all organized, and then I'll show you guys this way. So you remember before I had my iMac box there kind of acting as another desk, and then there was stuff in my windowsill and there was just stuff there. Now you can just see the whole entire space is just cleared and I love it. I'm super grateful. It is, I think, let me go back up. It is, I think, one of the reasons why I've been as productive as I've been so far is because I have moved back into my office and I'm taking advantage of the space that I specifically invested in for working. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed actually clearing the clutter in my life, and I will talk to you all very soon. Bye.